everyone, are you ready for another adventure? It's me, Wokey, and I'm back with some more Witch on the Holy Night because I ain't got much else to do. I'm currently waiting for Go to give me a little bit more info before I basically actually do the video saying this is going to be the next event. Even though I'm almost positive the next event is going to be the summer rerun, it is getting a little bit close and they haven't actually announced it yet, so I'm just going to give it a little bit more time until they actually announce something that we know of. But anyway, let's continue with Witch on the Holy Night. Some people said please continue, and 2 people said it, and that was enough for me to continue. So I'm now going to continue on where we last left off. But this gossip was 90% prejudiced, as Alco simply didn't have time to be irritated 24/7. The reality was she simply didn't want to explain herself all the time, and therefore seemed angry about something obvious or not. This idle gossip did, however, lead to her earning the title of one of the school's 7 deadly threats. The remaining 10% of the gossip was right on the mark. Alco herself often had the feeling that her tendency to feel animosity towards harmless things was akin to what a chronic headache sufferer might experience. Today fell under that 10%. For today, her anger was pure, and her childish and selfish display was befitting of her actual age. The meeting room was dimly lit, awash in the colors of the rain. To reduce electricity costs, school regulations forbid the use of lights during the day. This was the setting the 3 of them found themselves in. Her first impression was that his calm demeanor reminded her of a field of wildflowers. In spite of his perfect posture, his overall air felt placid, tame even. And though describing him as meek would be going too far, at the very least he was passive. Sorry, that animation of the extreme close-up of his body got me laughing. Even through his uniform, she could see that he was thinner than average. His dark hair was unkempt, and he came across as a wholly forgettable boy. If she had to look at him in a more positive light, she would describe him more a young man than a boy. He is a man. It was his calm demeanor that made him seem more mature. Was that the cause of Aoko's reasonless reaction? He seemed almost too at home in the meeting room, and she was left with the impression that it was her and the teacher, not this outsider, who were the guests here. She felt an unidentifiable aggravated building within her. Unidentifiable aggravation building within her, almost as if her right to be here was in question. Aoko felt herself raising her natural defenses. What's with me? Am I really this angry for no reason? She hated not understanding things, her own emotions in particular. It pained her less than you would imagine for a perfectionist like her, but it still nagged her like a thorn in her side. Aozaki, why don't you introduce yourself? Mr. Yamashiro's attempt to relieve the tension was equally irritating. Someone told me that apparently his name is actually Yamashiro, which I thought was what she said, but they spell it Yamashiro. I'm gonna go with Yamashiro though, because first of all, because that sounds more right. He looks like a Yamashiro to me. Introduce myself, huh? After casting a Nancy glance at the teacher's direction, Aoko turned to face the boy. From an outsider's perspective, it might have looked like a stare down. And in that instant, the culmination of her emotional state hurled toward the innocent boy and skewered him. Again, sorry for the wait, Shizuki. Hearing his name, Sojiro came to his senses. His stunned gaze shook loose. He took a deep breath to clear his mind. Chalking it up to nerves, Mr. Yamashiro broke out a smile and turned to the girl standing beside him.
彼が転入生の静木宗十郎くん。
I'll do the introductions then. This is the transfer student, Sojiro Shizuki.
で、こっちの彼女が静木くんの案内役。うちの生徒会長で休日を押して新しい仲間の案内役を買って出てくれた青崎青子くんだ。
And this is our student council president, who came in on her day off just to show you around. Her name is Aoko Aozaki. Having been introduced by Mr. Yamashiro, the girl took a step forward. Her eyes were merciless. Her stare, an unspoken threat to violently trample her opponent. Sojiro, on the other hand, managed to keep his own composure, despite the shock at how confrontational she appeared. He had never been greeted quite like this before, but supposed mistakenly that this was how people treated each other in the city. The exchange must have looked quite dramatic to an onlooker. The girl ready to brawl, an earnest country boy desperate to understand. It was a murderous limbo, especially for anyone in the room with them. Like Mr. Yamashiro, for example. While he had thought he had made it the right decision in choosing an honor student to help him out, she was in an inexplicably bad mood, and the tension in the air was undeniable. It was this moment that he realized his failure. Really? Just now? His realization had come far too late. One false move and this girl, for whom no problem was too large, would become a storm that would rock the very foundations of the school. Just as the almighty Joker card could bring either fortune or disaster, the sole teacher who had been present at the time would come to bear the blame for the scandal that ensued.
いけてる。二人とも気は合うようだね。
Wow, you two really seem to have hit it off. That's not gonna help.
僕はこの辺でいいかな。
I suppose I can leave you two to it then. Mr. Yamashiro laughed nervously as he crept towards the door.
僕は職員室にいるから終わったら来るように。
I'll be in the faculty room. Stop by when you're
いい
finished.
かい青崎くん。くれぐれもだぜ。
You'll be alright, won't you, Aozaki?
なんていうか、生徒会長としての度量の広さをこの際僕に信じさせてほしいかな。
You're the student council president. Don't let me down. Mr. Yamashiro left, leaving the two in a locked eye state, one set of eyes was doing all the glaring. All that remained in the room was the artless boy and a crossed-armed guarded girl. Stare. The two lingered in silence. They resembled shogi players agonizing over their first moves, though it was only Aoko who was reading so much into the situation. It's like she's looking back. It's like Homer with the, like, symbol monkey is what currently Sojiro is in his head, while in her head it's like a full-on war zone. She decided to put... That was me saying it, not the narration. She decided to put her irritation aside for the time being. With no reason to feel revulsion for him in the first place, she sighed deeply and faced Sojiro.
まあいいわ。山城先生がヒルアンドンなのは今に始まったことじゃないし。
Whatever. It's not like this is the first time that Mr. Yamashiro landed me in it.
それで、あなた名前は?
So, what's your name again? My name again. Her tone was nothing if not reproachful, though he had done nothing to offend her. But the boy failed to pick up on it. Incapable of such venom himself.
ああ、静木宗十郎かな。君は青崎さんだったね。
I'm Shozuro Suzuki, he replied, and you're Miss Aozaki, right? For whatever reason, he came across as happy in his response.
さんはいいわ。柄じゃないから。
Drop the miss. That's not my style.
こっちは静木くんでいい?
Is Suzuki fine?
いいって何が?
What do you mean?
だから呼び方。くんづけでいいかって聞いてるの。
What do you mean? What do I mean?
何よ。おかしなこと言った?私。
Hello, did I say something weird?
いや、すごく。
Yeah, very. The boy replied immediately as if it was a natural response, but quickly second-guessed himself.
いや、いいんだ。ごく一般的なんだろう。
Never mind, that must be normal here.
静木くんで頼む。 君は青崎でいいんだよな。
You can call me Shizuki. You mind if I call you Azuki?
え、よろしく。
Suit yourself. She followed her blunt reply with a swift turn away from him. Oh, she was hardly thrilled at the prospect of the task at hand. It had been entrusted to her, and it was her personal policy to see it through to the end.
悪いけど、優しくしてあげる気はないから。
Sorry, but I'm not in the mood for pleasantries.
時間も惜しいし。
Time is
手早
short.
く行くわよ。
Oh, time is short, so let's get this over with.
それは助かる。やっぱり時間は大切だ。
Sure, I know your time is valuable. Oko's blunt rancor was lost on him once again. Humans tend to be overly conscious about being ignored, whatever form that takes. But despite being peeved at landing none of her attacks, Aoko did her best to act professional and directed her guest into the hallway. It's not gonna work on this guy, man. He doesn't know what the fuck anything is. He's like lived in the mountains like fucking Goku. He's not gonna know what any of what you're saying means. There was no sunlight in the hallway, nor any sign of life. It was more like a prison than the cave that was in the meeting room. As it dawned on Aoko that the hallway matched her mood, she sighed once again.
まず聞いておくけど、山城先生から聞いたことは理解してる？
First things first, did you understand everything Mr. Yamashiro explained to you?
ああ、学校の仕組みについては分かった。
Yes, I get how the school
こ
works.
の建物全部に同い年の人間がいるなんて、ちょっと想像できないけど。
But it's still a bit hard to imagine that everyone here is around the same age.
そう、よかったわね。
I see. Great. Aoko rubbed her forehead. This Sojiro kid had no idea what he was in for. Apparently, all he'd heard about the school was that it was a place where a lot of people meet to study. It's not wrong. High school teachers imparted to students their knowledge in various fields of study while fostering discipline and creativity. But never did Aoko imagine that she would have to explain the concept of school itself to someone. Yes, fundamentals were important, but this was absurd. She had serious doubts whether he could even handle classes, but Mr. Yamashiro insisted that things would work out somehow. Sojiro had managed to pass the transfer exam after all. Barely.
ま、私には関係ないけど。
Not my problem. Aoko grumbled mentally as Aoko grumbled mentally as she walked down the hallway. I know that means that she grumbled in her head, but that made it seem like she was like doing a mental case of grumbling outside of it. She consoled herself with the fact that today would be the only day she'd spend with this boy out of time, or at least she tried to keep it that way.
青崎、
Aozaki? He asked, calmly trying to get her attention.
何？
What?
こっちも一つ聞いていいかな。
Can I ask you something?
だから何？
Yes, what is it?
俺の気のせいだと思うんだが、君はまるで何かを睨んでいるように見える。
I could be wrong about this, but you seem upset about
や
something.
はり、今朝は悪いものでも。
You're not a morning person, are you? His gaze revealed earnest concern as if it's asking her if she'd remembered to eat breakfast. It was like another hammer to her head. It was true that Aoko had been glaring at Sojiro the entire time. Glaring red-hot daggers, in fact. Not just at him, but the universe. Even on her best days, her roommates used to remark,
青子の視線は普通の人には厳しいわ。
most people can't handle your scowl, Aoko.
もう少し多くのことに寛大になるべきね。
It wouldn't hurt you to be a little bit more tolerant. She'd been warned that her emotions were so naked on her face that people treated her like a powder keg. How naive could the boy be that he could not pick up on this?
私をバカにしてるってわけじゃなさそうよね。この場合。
He's not making fun of me, is he? No, he couldn't be. Huh? Even she found her own attempt to reassure herself unconvincing. It began to dawn on Aoko for far too late that compared to her, this laid-back transfer student might as well have been from another planet.
いいわ。言葉にしないとわからないようだから言うけど。
Look.
まるでじゃなくて、ズバリそうなの。
Damn, she'd be talking a lot. Look, let me spell it out for you because you're not getting it.
あなたの気のせいじゃなくて、私は視線で遠回しに感情を表現してたの。いちいち声に出すのも会話にするのも面倒だから。
It's not your imagination. I am angry, and anyone could see that in my eyes. It's easier than trying to make conversations. In response to her words, the Martian clapped his hands together.
なるほど。どうしてそうしたいのかはわからないが、確かにそっちの方が手っ取り早い意思表現だ。
That makes sense. I don't know why you'd want to do it, wanted to do it that way, but I get that it's a faster way to express yourself. Sojiro accepted her reasoning without argument, though he still had no idea what kinds of emotions she was trying to express. It was as if he could hear the words but didn't grasp the meaning. Ideas that should have connected were instead separated into blocks.
確かにずれてるわ、こいつ。
So it's true, he really is peculiar. Mr. Yamashiro's words made sense to her now. What was odd about this boy went way beyond naivety. A stranger in a strange land he may be, but it was only civilized to forgive him some jet-lag-induced confusion.
じゃ、とりあえずあなたの教室に行くから。
Let's visit your classroom. He had regained her composure. Sojiro raised his hand and stopped in his tracks.
あと一つ。
Just one more thing. Please, ma'am, just one more thing real quick. Aoko waited for Sojiro to continue. The boy was patient to a fault. She rubbed her forehead with her hand again, nursing a vague feeling of uneasiness.
これもちょっとした疑問なんだが、なんで君は怒ってるんだ？
I wanted to ask, why are you so angry?
怒るのが商売とか、そういう家柄の人なのか？
Is it your line of business, or does it run in your family? A long silence. Though she knew it wouldn't change the situation, she remembered her regret at answering the phone that morning. He meant no harm. She repeated this thought like a mantra in an attempt to keep her impulses in check.
別にあなたのせいじゃないから気にする必要はないわ。
It's not you if that's what you're worried about.
ただ、この一瞬とお昼まで眠っていた場合を計りにかけたら、あまりに利益の違いがあって頭を抱えただけよ。
I'm just trying not to think about how much better my day would have gone if I had slept until noon. With that vague answer, she started to walk again, and turned her gaze away from this rude stranger named Sojiro Suzuki. While what constitutes normal is certainly up for debate, most would undoubtedly refer to him as so. He was a simple and nice boy with nondescript features. If he were an ice cream flavor, he would be vanilla. What you trying to say about vanilla? There's nothing wrong about vanilla. And Sojiro found Aoko to be very businesslike and full of life. There was a certain purpose to her movements as they began and ended in an orderly fashion. The way her fingers raised when she pointed at things. The way she made her way across the hallways and classrooms. The way she would occasionally glance back at him to make sure he was keeping pace. Each and every movement was so impressive that he couldn't take his eyes off her. Aoko showed him to his homeroom, Class C of the 11th grade. The room certainly displayed more of a human touch than the previous meeting room, but Sojiro was none the wiser as to its function. Aoko gave a brief explanation before they visited individual subjects, classrooms, as well as the gym, cafeteria, locker room, and the school infirmary. Sojiro asked so many questions that much time passed before they reached the AV room on the second floor.
まずいな。
Oh dear. Sojiro stopped looking genuinely concerned.
あと20分経つと1時だ。
It's 20 to 1 already.
嘘でしょ？うちの校舎そんな広くないわよ。
Huh? You're kidding, right? The school isn't that big. We'll be done soon. The tour had begun around 10, which meant that 3 hours had passed. The tour of a school shouldn't take anywhere near this long.
そうだったわね。行く先々で根掘り葉掘り聞かれちゃ、そりゃ何時間でも経つわ。
Maybe if you didn't ask so many
日が暮れていないの
questions.
も不思議なくらいね。
She's still talking. Maybe if you didn't ask so many questions, we'd be done by now. It's a miracle it's still light out. Alko glared at Sojiro. She was being sarcastic, of course, knowing full well he would never pick up on it. Izzy. To her surprise, he looked down apologetically, unable to hide his dejection.
なんだこいつ。ちゃんとしてるっちゃ。
Oops, I think I broke him. The guy before her now was nothing like earlier. In contrast to seeing his once impenetrable veneer when they first met, she found herself feeling sympathetic. Momentarily, at least, until her irritation returned in full force.
で、何がまずいの？覚えることが多すぎてパンクした。なんて言わないでね。
What's the hurry? Don't tell me your brain's not big enough to remember all this stuff.
いや、それもあるけど、学校のことは別にして、1時になるとまずいんだ。
Well, there's that, but it's more about it almost being 1 o'clock. Sojiro's gaze wandered as if worried about something. If he was worried about the weather, he would have a hard time seeing it as if there was no windows this hall. He would have had a hard time seeing it as there were no windows in this hallway. Okay, we got there.
へえ。時間を気にするってことは用事があるのね。
Don't tell me. You've got somewhere better to
うー
be.
ん、そう。人の予定を引っかき回しておいて、自分だけ好きなようにやろうって言うんだ。
That's perfect. I take time out of my day for you and you don't have the decency to even hang around.
なんだ、顔に似合わずいい人ね、君。
You're a real piece of work, you know that?
いや、褒めても何も出ないぞ。
Thanks, I guess. That's nice of you to say.
誰も褒めちゃいないわよ。
Not a compliment. She yelled at him, unable to hold back her fury.
で、
Well?
で？
Well, what?
それで、一体何の用なの？
What's happening in 20 minutes? Sojiro's face lit up as he finally understood what she was asking
そ
him.
こは秘密にしておきたい。
It's a secret. He said with a perfectly straight face.
慣れ始めたつもりだったけど、こいつのこういったテンポに失神しそうになるわ。
Every time I think I've got this guy figured out, he finds a way to trip me up. Her frustration was natural. Still, she did everything she could to stifle her feelings and fake a smile.
しずきくん？
You want to repeat that, Shizuki? She took a step forward.
秘密だってば。
Like I said, it's a secret. Feeling the mood change drastically, Shojiro took a step back. And another. And another. No matter how many steps he took back, she kept edging towards him. She was smiling, but he thought he could see the blood boiling beneath her skin.
これ、最後の質問にしとくわね。
Last question.
あなた、私をからかって楽しい？
Do you enjoy mocking me? He had no intention of mocking her, though at this point he doubted presenting any evidence to prove this would do much to erase that forced smile on her face.
わかった。説明する。
Let me explain. His arms raised in surrender. She halted her advance and freed her face from that unseemly smile.
実は1時からアルバイトがあるんだ。でもここはそういうの禁止なんだろ？
The truth is that my part-time job shift starts at 1, but students aren't allowed to have jobs, right?
そうだけど、あ、禁止されてるから秘密にしようと思ったの？バカね。それなら許可さえ下りていれば問題ないわよ。
She's almost done. Yeah. Wait, were you being tight-lipped because you thought you'd get in trouble? All you have to do is get permission, dweeb.
知ってる。試験の時に許可をもらってる。
I know, and I did. I got permission when they accepted me to the school.
へえ。
Really? Ako's face lit up as she realized he might not be the piece of work she thought him to be. Yet,
しかし、許可は一つしかもらえなかった。
but I only got permission for one of my jobs.
一つって、あなた掛け持ちでバイトしてるの？
Wait, you have more than one job?
これでも2件減らしたんだ。
Well, I quit 2 of them.
生活費だけで大変なのに、学費まで稼がなくちゃいけない。なのに、働き先は一つだけというのはあんまりだと思わないか。
Living expenses are bad enough, but now I have to earn money for school as well? Don't you think it's unreasonable of them to let me work one job? To only let me work one job? He's right. He's right.
いや、あんまりなのはあなたの方だと思うけど。
No, I think you're the one being unreasonable. Though still irritated, her opinion of him changed a little. She was impressed that he was able to take care of his tuition and living expenses all on his own. She could also empathize with having no time to oneself. Her anger began to subside. The words part-time job were about the last thing she ever expected to hear out of this country boy's mouth.
そういうことなら仕方ないわね。
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess.
いいわ、行きなさいよ。事情は分かったから。
It's fine, you can go. I get it.
青崎はいいのか？
Will you be okay? She had no idea what this question meant, but she at least understood he was trying to be considerate. Which also took her by surprise. She figured he'd just be as dense about people's feelings as he was about everything else.
別に、私もこのまま帰るから。
I'll be fine. I'll just head home. First, though, she thought it best that they both stop by the faculty room. Mr. Yamashiro had mentioned that the transfer procedures had already been completed, so all that remained was for him to sign off on her duties.
先生、案内終わりました。
I finished showing him around.
それはお疲れ様。しずきくんもお疲れ様。それで校舎を回った感想はどうかな？
Great job. That goes for you too, Shizuki. What did you think of our school?
ありがとうございます。なんというか、とても学校ですね。
Thank you for the tour. It's like a real school.
そうかそうか。うん、明日から頑張りなさい。
Haha, that's great to hear. Okay then, best of luck starting tomorrow. She had no interest whatsoever in this pointless wrap-up meeting.
山城先生のことは気にしないでいいわ。
You'll have to forgive Mr. Yamashiro.
教え子に厄介なことを押し付けてふんぞり返っているぐらい職員室が好きなんだから。何時間でも待ってるでしょ。
He likes the faculty room so much he chooses to kick back there while getting his students to do his dirty work for him. I bet he spends hours in there.
いや、待ってるべきじゃない？
Actually, that's pretty smart of him.
そうか。青崎がいいんならいいんだな。
Okay, Aozuki, if you're fine with it, then so am I.
Mhm.
Huh? There it was again. Whatever Sojiro was getting at, Aoko had no idea.
それじゃあ行くよ。今日はありがとう。
I'm going to get going. Thanks again for today.
今日だけよ、今日だけ。
Yes, today. Today only. She shooed him away with her hand. His face bent into a broad smile as if he had found the gesture endearing. It was a softer expression that she had grown accustomed to seeing out of him. It was the kind of smile that would make anyone smile back. Well, most people at least. Aoko Ozaki didn't portray the slightest hint of a smile.
それじゃあまた。
He's kind of doing a weird, confused face. See you later.
Huh?
Oh. And with that friendly farewell, Sojiro walked toward the end of the hallway. Or so she thought before he turned into the next class over. Did he just? Sojiro headed straight for one of the classroom's windows. Whereupon he opened it with ease. Is he gonna jump out the fucking window? That chilly November air filled the room as the soft sounds of the rain doubled in volume. In that instant, she realized his intention with opening the window. She really wished she had it.
いや、待て待て待て！
No! Stop, 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 stop! He already had one leg out the window when she dashed to stop him.
何するつもりよ、あんたは！
What do you think you're doing?
何ってアルバイトに
What am I doing? I'm leaving for my job, that's what.
その窓は人が出入りするところじゃないの。
You do know that this window isn't an exit,
大
don't you?
体、ここ何階だと思ってるの？
I mean, do you even know what floor you're on? She saw the light of understanding dawn on in his
そうい
eyes.
うところだった。2階から降りたら危なすぎる。
Oh my god, I almost died! Who would have put an exit here? This is dangerous.
危ないのはあんたの頭。
It's the lack of something between your ears that's dangerous. Her insult went right over his head because he didn't have a brain.
あのね、こっちじゃ窓から人は出入りしないの。さっき言っとくべきだったわ。
People here don't normally enter and exit through windows, okay? You should probably remember this information for future reference.
知ってるよ。時間がないんで慌ててたんだ。
Oh, I know. I just wanted to save some
ありが
time.
とう。これからは気をつける。
But thanks, I'll be more careful from now on. There is no thoughts in that head of his. There's just like there's just zero thoughts in that boy's head. This is actually the most well drawn, brain empty character that I've ever seen. He pulled his leg back inside and closed the window. His school uniform was soaking wet from the rain.
いいけど、私は別に。
Hey, be my guest.
あなたがどこから外に出ようが関係ないもの。ただ、できれば私の前ではやらないでほしいだけよ。
Go outside any way you like. Just don't do it in front of me. Just don't do it in front of me from now on.
それより、あなた、本当に明日から学校に来るの？
Anyway, you start school tomorrow, right?
来るよ。不安だけど案内してもらったし。
Yeah, I'm a little nervous though, which is why I came in early for the tour. He bid her farewell before running away down the hallway. She hoped he would walk down the stairs and leave through the school entrance like a normal person.
大丈夫なのか？あんなんで。
I wonder if he's really going to be okay here. The image of him disappearing into the distance popped into her head in spite of her ire. She had no intention of spending any more time with him, and yet she felt strangely anxious. She couldn't tell if the feeling was fueled by concern or irritation. Why had she even gotten angry with this insignificant transfer student in the first place? Strange day with a strange transfer student resulting in strange emotions. Her head tilted as she reflected on what would have been a more enjoyable day than the irritating experience she just had.
いっか。
Whatever.
どうせこれっきりなんだし。
It's not like as if I'll ever see him again, or perhaps be in a collab event with him in a gacha game in the future. Sound of the rain echoed quietly around her. The gray sky seemed frozen in time. It was impossible to discern whether it was morning or evening. Mr. Yamashiro and Aoko were likely the only ones left at school. The unlit classroom looked overly gloom and ominous as Aoko stood in it alone. She pulled up her left sleeve. Her dainty, unremarkable watch showed that it was almost 1 o'clock.
時間合ってる。
He was right about the time. She looked out the window at the grounds below. She saw a boy in uniform running through the rain without an umbrella, a sight she must have seen before, but for whatever reason, affected her far more than she wished. Elko did not stop by the faculty room before heading home. Mr. Yamashiro's offer to drive her home was tempting. She decided it would ultimately be far more satisfying to ruin his day just as he had hers. She walked as quietly as she could toward the entrance and opened her bright red umbrella. As she had predicted that morning, the rain was waning in the afternoon. At this rate, it would probably cease completely in an hour or so. The distant sunshine would likely have reached her by the time she had arrived home.
ま、それも悪くないか。
Well, I suppose it could be worse. She shrugged her shoulders in resignation. She neither liked nor disliked rain, but she found herself enjoying her walk home with her red umbrella in hand. Ooh, nice picture. The teachers at Misaki High School weren't fond of bright colors, so Aoko's red umbrella was an unusual sight. A ghost story about how the umbrella was once pure white had been making the rounds, but it featured Aoko instead of a ghost. It was with that umbrella that she had made her way towards the Misaki station. Slowly walking that JPEG walk. Slowly advancing forward. Misaki Private High School took its namesake from the town it was in. The area was once a sprawl of farmland and woodland, but rapid growth over the last 10 years had led to unprecedented modernization. There were some who fought to preserve Misaki's true treasure.
残すことには賛成ですが、それでは残すだけになってしまうでしょう。
I agree in principle to preserving the land, but not at the expense of our prosperity. With those words, the mayor snuffed out the voices of the minority and ushered the long-term plan for a new urban development. in the Industrial Revolution. More than enough funds for the urban development were collected, and the unassuming town of Misaki became the largest municipal of Misaki City in merely 10 years. Even though it lacked the modernity of neighboring Yashiragi? 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 Something like that. I don't know. Or the elegance of Misaki Hills.
それも当然よね。どういじくっても、もともとが山中の宿場町だし、山ごと切り崩すって言うんなら別だけど。
What did people expect? To keep the town hidden atop the mountain forever? It's not like they were gonna flatten the mountain or something. Urbanization had been contained to the lowlands around the station, with most of the hills and mountains still standing as they did 10 years prior. The exhaustion of funds succeeded in protecting the old Misaki where the citizens could not. It became a truly odd suburban town, welcoming an increasingly urban population with its vestiges of old country charm. Misaki High School was a private school established long before the town's current state. The original campus, built 50 years ago, was located high up in the mountains, making its current location its second incarnation. The path to the old grounds was not only steep and remote, it had become an overgrown game trail with the passage of time. For these reasons, among others, Misaki High School had been shuttered until almost 20 years ago, when it received a donation from a department store chain that allowed it for the construction of a new campus in the city. And thus, Misaki High School reopened its doors, the old woodland campus forgotten. In fact, most of the students attending Misaki High School were not from Misaki at all. The hardy rustic people of this country town preferred prefectural schools to private ones. Truth be told, Aoko herself was one of them. All she had wanted after junior high was to move to Tokyo, where she hoped to spend her days touring her favorite bands on her way to entering a public university. But her hopes were dashed with her sister's departure, so here she was, walking alone in town with only a red umbrella to keep her company on what should have been a day off.
思い返してみると、私の人生ってなんか災難続きっぽい。
Looking back on it now, it's like my whole life has been one disaster after another. But frustration evaporated into the cold December air.
でもま、いっか。退屈だけはしないわけだし。
Oh well, at least it's not boring. With those words, her mood brightened a bit as she left the school in her wake. The busier part of town met her at the bottom of the gently sloping road. Beep, beam, beep, beam, beep, beam. Misaki's train station was brand new. Once looking no prettier than an abandoned factory, it had been renovated into a multi-purpose structure with huge department stores on its east and west sides. When the department stores first opened, Aoko and her friends had been impressed with their modern feel, but in time the stores too became dated. She had no shopping to do today, so she passed them by. What she really wanted to do was rest at a cafe, but she fought the urge, knowing her roommate would never let her hear the end of it if she flittered away her money. What the fuck? She looked back and blinked. For just a moment, she could have sworn she had seen someone suspicious in a red dress out of the corner of her eye. It must have been her imagination. The sixth sense chill she was experiencing down her spine was a familiar one at this point. She continued her walk, brushing off the events as if it had never happened. In time, the chill faded, and all that was left was the sounds of the town. She sighed heavily. Had she imagined it? Even if it had all been in her head, she was far from comfortable with the feeling that still lingered.
夏場の方ってもう少しこう。
Even mosquitoes have the grace to buzz off eventually. She grumbled under her breath.
波乱万丈、商売繁盛、 諸行無常と。
Whether good or bad, this too shall pass. So the saying goes.
そうそう、忙しさに愚痴を言っても始まらないわ。
Yeah, I've got enough on my plate as it is. Unfortunately, summer and bugs had go hand in hand. You could see how bugs could be drawn to all the sweet fruit. Is he at his job now? Rank with grease and heat, the kitchen was closed for the time being. The lunch rush had come and gone. But one last battle remained. Dinner time. Only after the evening chaos could the kitchen crew remove their white armor and call it a day. In the midst of this war zone was a lone newcomer.
これ着るんですか?
Do I have to wear this? His voice was uneasy, portraying how new he was.
気持ちはわかる。俺もどうかと思うけど、店長の言うことだから、もう笑顔で乗り越えてくれ。これも商店街の明日のためなんだとよ。本気で申し訳ないんだが、
That
雨も
was
やんだし、なんとか行ってきてくれないか。
okay. No, he's still going.
無事帰ってきたら晩飯おごってやっから。
Damn. I know how you feel, man. I feel the same. Unfortunately, it's the boss's orders, so you'll have to suck it up, okay? The future of this shopping arcade is at stake, apparently. I really hate to ask, but the rain has stopped, so would you mind going out for me? Get back in one piece and I'll buy you dinner. His bright orange co-worker clasped his hand together as to beg for forgiveness as he saddled him with this unreasonable task. Damn, this is crazy slope. 10 years ago, Misaki's city was a town of a farm and woodland. But everything had changed. The front of the station was now lined with tall, multi-story buildings, and the residential areas were similarly full of apartment complexes. The once rustic scenery around the station had long become a thing of the past. Hiro Inozuka was the only place in the city that still contained vestiges of the old town, a pocket of the past inside an urban jungle. The road extended up the conspicuously high hill to an old residential district far from the hustle and bustle of the train station. Long ago, it had been considered unwise to build on high ground, so nobody lived about a certain elevation. Shiro Inazuka, sitting as it did atop a hill in the middle of town, was no exception to this convention. It had no residence to speak of. The asphalt continued for some time, eventually giving way to a mountain road that was swallowed into the cover of trees. A lone vending machine stood to mark the boundary between town and beyond. Even the children knew that there was nothing beyond the new playground development that so enthralled them. Well, that was not entirely true. There was nothing besides the haunted house. Aozuki traversed the long slope. I don't know why that sentence took so much out of me, but it did. Below her, she could see the whole of Misaki. The symmetrical town looked like a miniature set from this height. It would look like painting if there had been a sea next to it, but unfortunately Misaki City was very much landlocked. While it was overcast at the moment, the scene was quite breathtaking in clear evenings. It is very breathtaking. The view was the one thing that had made the arduous climb worthwhile, and today she had been denied even that.
雨の日は自転車も使えないし、1日に2回ぐらいバスでも通ってくれないもんかな、ほんと。
I'd cycle home if it wasn't for this rain. Even a bus route would be a fine thing. Aoko had been using this road to get to school for almost 2 years now, but the journey had never gotten easier.
あれ、鍵閉まったまま？
Oh, it's locked?
アリス、まだ帰ってきてないんだ。
I guess Alice isn't back yet. With a weary shrug, she put her hand on the rusty iron fence. Quietly, the heavy gate swung open as if it was to welcome her home. There sits atop that hill a haunted house. That is how the story much shared around the town used to begin. But fresh rumors about the house had sprung to life almost as fast as the town's modernization. Despite being dilapidated and abandoned for many years, light can be seen inside the house at night. An angry murder of crows often gathers atop the hill before mysteriously vanishing. This is also a very nice picture. Children get lost in the fog and never to be seen again. Late at night, a shrieking sound can be heard all the way to town. This particular piece of slander was the one Alco wished to discredit the most. The final rumor was of an eye-catching luxury car that sometimes made its way up and down the hill. The rumors spread and grew by the day. And while they grew, the house that everyone thought had rotted away was restored over the recent years. Deep in a wood on the top of the hill, no one dared to approach. Like a ruin, shrouded from the view even on the brightest of days, stood a relic out of time, a building from a fairy tale. The house was the Kinoji Mansion. Kionji Mansion, maybe? Everyone in town knew about the witch's house on the hill. It was an unabashedly haunted house where Aoko Aozaki resided, for reasons known only to her. Needless to say, it was not really haunted. The Kinoji family home was a grand Western-style mansion with a long and storied history stretching all the way back to England. It was too small to be a dormitory, yet too big to be called a house. The main building contained as many as 3 normal houses worth of rooms and was surrounded by a large all-encompassing courtyard. The perimeter of the grounds was surrounded by a high iron fence covered in thorny vines. There was also an annex to the main building. Given such extravagance, it was no wonder that it inspired rumors. To the town residents, the mere existence of such lavish and out-of-place mansion on top of the hill was cause for suspicion. Suspicion. Rumors, lies, and slander were the prices to be paid for fame. With only 2 lodgers, it was hard to disagree with the perception that vampires must be living there.
ま、私はともかく、アリスはそういうのやりかねないし。
Well, I know I'm not one, but Alice. She put her hand on the front of the door. It was a grand double door that would be paired well with a brass lock, and yet it was secured with a little more than a simple keyhole. Pushing it open with one hand, she entered the supposedly haunted house. And by the way, if vampires were not enough to scare you, ghosts were known to appear on certain nights. Ooh, a giant clock. Much like the weather outside, the foyer was overcast with shades of gray. Perhaps by deliberate design, the architect had chosen not to include any light in the entrance area. The ceiling was 2 floors high. The only light in the room came from the skylight. It was particularly gloomy on rainy days. On moonless nights, it was like the world itself ceased to be. Alko decided that the drawing room to the east would be a good place to rest, but knowing that she would not be able to relax until she changed clothes, she started up the stairs. The stairs curled up the wall to the 2nd floor hall. There was a 3rd attic as well, accessible from the far end of the hall. She had never set foot there in the 2 years she had lived here, though. The Kinoji mansion was more or less divided into 2 wings, east and west. Alko had been given the entire east wing, but 2 rooms were more than enough as far as she was concerned. She had no desire to open a door that would trap you in a storybook world or lead to an attic that had only been used for storage these last 5 years. Elko's room was at the end of the east wing's long corridor. She had elected for a smaller room for no reason other than that she thought it would be easier to clean. It was furnished with a large bed, her beloved mahogany desk, a wardrobe and chest for her clothes, and 2 9-shelf bookcases. That was the extent of what she had brought from home. Her entire life of 16 years reduced to this. She had always borrowed the next room's door. She always borrowed the next room down for her own purposes.
そうだ。アリスにもらった見張りと壊れてないかチェックしないと。
Oh yeah, I should check on the watchtower I got from Alice. She needed to see if the project she had been working on all night had borne fruit. The study next door served as proof of the life she had been living for the last year and how different that life was from the one she had lived before. It was not a room for the person she had been. It was a room for the person she would eventually become. A place of solitude that only she could enter, or so she thought.
うわ、壊れてるどころか跡形もなく消え去ってる。やっぱ自己流アレンジはまだ早かったか。いいわよ。笑いなさいよ、コマドリ。
Wow, not only did it break, it vanished without a trace. Looks like I've still got a long way to go. Go ahead, laugh it up, Robin. Yup. The nosy neighbor had intruded upon her sanctuary, flew away. Not exceptionally talented. While not exceptionally, there we go, exceptionally talented, Alco did not lack for effort and was not afraid to fail. One could have almost mistaken her approach for optimism. She changed out of her uniform and returned to the first floor. Now in new pants and new shirt. Down the stairs, she opened the door to the east wing into the corridor as dark as a cellar. The absence of windows meant it was pitch black without the lights on, so she flicked the switch and entered the nearby doorway. TV! It's a CRT! You can really play Smash Brothers on that. Life without electricity? I don't even want to imagine it. It had been our idea to update the drawing room. The walls were decorated with extravagant patterns, and around the room were large and majestic sofas, and a luxurious Persian rug. Amidst it all was a 30-inch TV that seemed completely out of place. It stood looking over the other furniture like the emperor with no clothes. The mansion's owner would rather have done without it, but to a commoner like Aoko, it was an essential commodity. She had fought over its presence at first, but eventually came to an agreement and now mutually enjoyed this modern comfort.
なんだ、人のことは言えないか。うちも案外時代錯誤な家だった。
Guess I'm one to talk. I came from a pretty traditional household myself. Now in a somewhat pleasant mood, she decided to brew some tea. She boiled some water in the kitchen, prepared a teapot, and made herself some black tea. Tea to make the tea. Woo! With a flop, she sank into the sofa. She took a sip of her tea, then another. We're not going to show you that animation, though. Just trust us on that. No budget in the game for sipping tea. We can't afford is these sick landscape shots, though. And this house. Now it's nighttime. Lulled by the ticking of the clock, she took a third sip as she pondered how to spend her afternoon. The sofa almost seemed to be inviting her, and she sunk even further into its comfortable embrace. The fuck? Elko blearily opened her eyes as she lifted her body up from the cushions. This was no dream or delusion. At some point, a girl had sat across from her. Not the least bit surprised, she reached for her teacup, but the tea within had gone completely cold. Did I doze off? She asked the question to the girl on the other side of the table. Yes. The girl answered without lifting her gaze. When silent, she could have been mistaken for a beautiful doll. The girl sitting on the opposite sofa was reading an old book. She had delicate limbs and pale white skin. Not a hint of humanity emanted from her melancholy. My God, not a hint of humanity emanated from her melancholic aura. It's called aura, bro. She had darker hair than Alco, and her icy eyes were focused on the pages in front of her. Her clothes resembled that of a nun but were actually her school uniform. In Alco's humble opinion, the gloominess suited her. She evoked something out of a painting. There was something unreal about her, as if she were frozen in time. The white of her gently arched neck was so lovely that even Alco herself found herself enchanted by it. The girl was one of the haunted house's 2 residents. Her name was Alice Kanoji, and she was the same age as Alco.
私どれくらい寝てた？
How long was I asleep?
1時間と少し。ここで眠ると風邪ひくわよ。
At least an hour. You'll catch a cold if you keep sleeping here. Alice answered indifferently, not that it bothered Alco, who was now used to it. She looked at the clock on the wall and saw that it was already 7. She had been asleep for 2 hours. The day had been a rough one for her, and she had slept little the night before, so it was no surprise that she had dozed off for so long as she had.
起こしてくれてもよかったのに。
You could have woken me up.
せっかくの紅茶が冷めちゃったじゃない。
Now my tea is cold. The tea's gone cold. I'm wondering why. Got out of bed at all. Morning rain lights on my window, and I can see it all. It's not too late. It's not too late. It was already cold by the time I got here.
でしょうね。行ってみただけよ。
I'm sure it was. I'm just saying. Alco drank down the rest of the cold tea in one gulp. In the poorly heated Kanoji mansion, there was more than enough. That was more than enough to clear her head and wake up.
こうなると、フォートナム&メイソンも何もないわね。
Nothing quite beats this tea, not even the expensive kind from Britain.
おかえり、アリス。玉の贅沢もあんた抜きじゃ閉まらないってことかしら。
Anyway, welcome home, Alice. The universe seemed determined to keep me from the occasionally luxury without you.
今日は薬日か天中殺か。ちょっと早いけど、お参りってのも十分ありかもね。
What is it about today? Is it just my luck or what? At this rate, I'm due to a temple visit just to be safe. Alco shrugged her shoulders as if she resigned herself to her fate.
それで何があったの？
Something happened? After 2 years together, they had known each other quite well. Alco had only one way of asking questions, and Alice had another. Alice asked without raising her head, and Alco gave her the details.
まず謝らなくちゃいけない。
I should start by apologizing.
昨日徹夜で完成させた例のあれ、意味がなくなっちゃったのよ。ちょっと目を離した隙に沸騰しすぎて壊れちゃったみたい。
The project I was working on all night was a total failure. I only took my eyes off it for a second, but I think it boiled over and fell
そうなら
apart.
ないよ。循環のコードを2、3本外したり、縫合したりしたんだけど。
Though I'll add that I shuffled the circulation codes as a precaution. Alco tried to laugh it off as if it was someone else's problem.
どういうこと？
And?
今朝休養が入って、学校に呼び出し受けたの。そこで転入生の世話を押し付けられて、一日が無残にも消費されちゃって、帰ってきたら跡形もなく消えてました。
Something came up this morning, and I was called into school. They made me show this transfer student around, and it took up my whole day. By the time I got back, it had vanished without a trace.
怒る？アリス。
You're not mad, are you?
別に青子の器物破損にいちいち怒っていたら一
Hardly.
生分の口論をすることになるでしょう。
Hardly. If I got mad every time you broke something, there would be no end to the
代用
fighting.
品はあるからまた一から始めればいいわ。
I have more material, so you can just start over.
それより怒ってるのはあなたの方じゃないの？
However, aren't you really the one who's angry? Albus was very much on point today. It was true that despite outward appearances, Alco was seething with frustration. That aside,
この転入生っていうのがひどくずれててね。
True enough, the transfer student I mentioned earlier was a real piece of work.
すごい山奥で暮らしてたらしくて、こっちの常識が通じないんだから。三問以下って言葉があるけど、あれって本当のことなのね、アリス。
He's been living deep in the mountains and literally zero common sense. I know people say that the mountains are like an entirely different world, but I had no idea how true it was, Alice. Alice raised her head in response to hearing her name. But Alco kept going on before she could get a word in edgewise. Alco, after all, expected no sympathy in the first place.
初対面から尺に触るやつだったけど、教室を案内した時なんか失神しそうになったわ。
We didn't get along well from the start, but things really took a turn for the worse when I took him to a
そ
classroom.
いつ、教室で教師と1対1で授業を受けるもんだと思ってたらしいの。
He apparently thought it was a place where you
それ
get...
はそれでまだ
Oh,
流せる。許容範囲よ。あの程度の冗談は。
where you get one-on-one tutoring, and that's not all. I mean, you're never gonna believe this.
で、私が簡潔かつ丁寧に教室の何たるかを教えた後で、そいつなんて言ったと思う？
What do you think he asked when I politely explained what a classroom is to him?
それで青崎、他の教室は何に使うんだ？
He goes, but then what are the other classrooms for?
ですって。
Unbelievable, right?
教室に他も何もないでしょ？
I mean, a classroom is a
なん
classroom.
ていうか、そいつは少しでも説明を怠るとそのままで納得しちゃうのよ。
And no matter how vague or unhelpful anything I said was, he just kept
何
nodding.
も疑問に思わないというか、想像力が欠如してるっていうか、想像することに慣れてないっていうか。
It was like he was just taking everything at face value. I don't know if he just lacks in imagination or never uses it.
まあ、一度言ったことはちゃんと分かってるっぽいからバカってわけじゃないんだけど。
Anyway, he at least seemed to grasp most of what I told him the first time around, so I suppose he's not a complete idiot.
あなたが人を批評するのは珍しいわね。そういうダメな人、気にするたちだったの？
It's rare to see you so judgmental. Is it really worth getting worked up over someone like that?
みじんたりとも気にしないわよ。けど、明日からどんな間違いをしでかすのか、ちょっと心配なだけ。
I couldn't care less about him. I'm just worried that he'll screw up somehow. What she was really worried about was having to clean up that mess when it happened. That had to be it. If not, it would mean she had no real idea she could not get him out of his head.
とにかく変なやつなの。案外アリスと気が合うかも。
Well, he was a weirdo, all right. You two would probably hit it off great.
三問以外はいい言葉ね。
Another world in the mountains doesn't sound so bad. But from her eyes, it was clear that the question of whether they would get along was irrelevant, given that they would never meet in the first place. Uncle gave a non-committal response.
ところでアリス、さっきから何読んでるの？
Well, before I continue on, I think I've been going on for an hour here, so I think this is what I'll save it right here. Hold up, save, and then go here, place bookmark. Yeah, do I want to save the data right here? All right then. I'll continue on with a bit more. I don't know when the next time it would be, but keep an eye on it. I will continue going through it. It's kind of crazy that it's almost 2 hours in. And I still don't know what's really going on, but I guess it is just building up what's going on in this town and stuff. Checking out some of the characters and things like that. But I'm enjoying it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you made it all the way to here to the end, I appreciate it. If you want to see me keep doing stuff, I guess recording videos of it, the best way to do it is to just leave a like, I guess. Commenting also helps, but obviously commenting does help because 2 people said please continue and I did. So that's the secret sauce, is if you just say it, then I'll just go, okay, sure, no problem. As long as I got the time for it anyway. But anyway, that's it, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.